don't mean to change the topic, and not at all, or we can kind of
Well, we're not even on a topic. We're just wasting time, which I love.
This is true. But that's one reason I'm really on the fence about the trans people playing sports, because on one side, I'm like, who fucking cares who's playing? Like, less than 1% of you are going to go on to play anything professionally, regardless of the sport. Tennis, basketball, football. The chances of your child, now it may be different going to college or getting a scholarship, right? Like,
right.
Some families. But then I think about on the other side, and you think about the suicide rate with trans kids, like it is through the roof. I mean, suicide attempts, actual suicide, like, so, okay, if they want to play a sport, why not let them, in order to feel a community and be a part of something and enjoy it. And then on the flip side, having played sports, I'm like, men biologically are built differently than women.
Yes.
They just are. Like, it's not, I'm not trying to knock or say anything, but it's like, if we had to play basketball against a man, or volleyball, or it would have been just having one man on the opposing team, or person who was born male, could completely change. Now, that's assuming all men are good, right? Like, that's making an assumption. Just because they are born a male doesn't mean they're going to be great at a sport.
No, but typically these kids, the trans kids in general, are into the things that they're into, regardless of their gender, right? So, like, you could be a boy on a sports team. Like, the swimmers are what come to mind. A couple of the trans kids that have been swimmers were swimmers prior.
Right.
And they were good swimmers, not necessarily phenomenal swimmers, but right. I mean, good enough to be on the team that they were on. And now they're competing in a different gender.
Right. Or like here in New York, a few weeks ago, I read an article about, is it the triathletes, or what is the where you like run, swim,
run and bike. Yeah.
And two of the top 5 were trans women. And the cisgender women, it was really interesting because they were like, look, like, I'm 100% pro trans rights, but I'm not competing anymore because we don't have a chance. Like, it was like, this is not fair. And it's like, well, fuck, what do you do? Like, it's so complicated.
Well, you know what? For me, it's interesting, and this is why I don't make the rules, but for me, it's not that complicated. I'm all for letting them compete in general, but they don't count to me, they don't count in the end result. Now, life's hard. Actually, so this is our topic, and this will all come together, and that's about life being fair, because life is not fair. There is nothing fair in life, ever. Because who gets to decide what is fair, right? Like, who's the decision maker in that realm? So to me, and it's interesting because you brought this up, and this is something that I didn't think about, is, yeah, you're right. Now, to compete in swimming, and we'll use swimming as a base for 1 second, because it's just, sure, it keeps popping up, and it happens a lot. And in swimming, because men are physiologically different, muscle mass is different, men can be stronger in water than women in general. Can be. I didn't say they absolutely are, and some women are going to be faster than men, but if you're Michael Phelps and you decide to grow your hair out and you want to become a woman, you're still going to be Michael Phelps,
right,
in the pool. And so, is that fair?
I mean, you know what I find so interesting when these conversations get brought up a lot of the time, at least from the ones that I've heard, it's usually trans women. Right? Well, where it's controversial.
Oh, yes, agreed. Although I did see one 60-minute segment about a young lady that became a man, and he was on the swim team of a college, and he wasn't first place. So it wasn't an argument. You're right. I don't even think he was third or fourth place, but he was good enough to be on the team.
Yeah.
But you're right. It's not.
It doesn't come up.
Because
it's like,
yeah.
Well, here's my thing, and I could be wrong. I feel like there's a couple of reasons. One is when you're talking about athleticism, it's going to veer towards a biological man competing with women because they are going to probably dominate in a lot of cases, right? If they're like athletes.
Yeah.
As opposed to the opposite direction. And then I think the other part of it, and this is where I could be very wrong about this, I'm okay with that. I think a lot of the time it's because trans women were men. So their life, they have been treated like men and getting their way, or they've navigated the world, which is a male's world, when they're a lot more prone to speaking up and being loud. And it's like, I never hear any argument about what we're going to call men, right? It's always like they're men. For women, it's like trans women. And at one point I'd heard humans with uteruses versus like, there's all this controversy. And it's like, why does someone who was once a woman or born a male who decides to be a woman can decide that they're going to rename who I am? Like, I am a woman. I am not going to let somebody else redefine how I show up in the world because it makes them uncomfortable. Or like now they're joining us. It's like, you know what? If you want to be called a woman, I don't give a fuck.
Right.
But don't try to re-identify who we are because you're now joining our posse. like you're welcome to the posse, but don't try to come in and like change it
and tell me how to refer to it. Now, interesting enough though, it's not, I feel now, mind you, I am not interested in changing my gender, right? I am not a trans person. So I can only speak to what my limited knowledge has in this sense, but I can't imagine that it's easy, right, to change genders.
No.
So I don't feel most of the transgender people do it to get ahead in a sport.
Oh, absolutely not.
Or something, because I mean, the amount of work and pain and suffering you must endure in order to get to that other side seems a little drastic. Just to, come in first in a swim meet, right?
100%. And I mean, yeah, I don't think the majority of humans would make the choice to take hormones or have surgeries and do these things if they didn't feel really strongly about it. And in order to win, like, I just don't think that's part of the calculation of like, I will have a leg up in this sport.
Right. I would have to agree. I think that would be a little crazy.
Yeah. I mean,
for a sport, right? I feel that there's personally, I feel that there's more to it. So one of the arguments that I've heard has been that argument, like, well, they just want to get a scholarship to college. I'm like, I hear ya. I mean, if it was just a matter of dressing up, maybe. But that's not what being trans is, right? Like, you are uprooting your life. You are changing your identity. I mean, there's a lot to it. If you want to just, dress as a woman and then say you can swim on the girls' swim team, no. But if you're transitioning your life then I'm back to, yeah, you can swim with the swim team, but your numbers don't count. They just don't count.
See, I don't think that's the answer either. I just don't agree with that because I feel like if you are a competitor and you're someone who is doing it for the rush or the win and it's a team sport, I feel like it almost takes away the reason why they probably are in sports.
Yeah,
right?
but it doesn't take away the reason why they're, because freedom, you and I have to sacrifice things every day as women. There's a lot of things that I would like to do. I'd like to make the same amount of money as men, and I don't want to have the argument, but I do. So again, life isn't fair. So if you want to be a woman, be a woman, but we sacrifice every fucking day as women. So get used to it. Here you are. That's how I feel about it.
But I mean, it's like, okay, so if you have a trans woman playing basketball, you
As
have
a man or a
doesn't
trans,
matter, man, woman, you have a trans human playing in a basketball team.
okay.
Does that mean that if they score during the game, those points don't go towards the team's score?
I haven't gotten that fine tuned yet. I don't, because life isn't fair. I don't know. Maybe that's what that means. Maybe you get, so you're a trans boy, you're a girl who's become a man, and you want to play on the boys basketball team.
Mm-hmm.
Do you make the team? Probably not.
I bet you are.
Yeah. I mean, you'd have to be phenomenally, you'd have to be pretty goddamn good, really.
Yeah.
So so you're good enough to make the boys team, and then the question is, do your points not count? Maybe they don't.
I think that totally defeats the point of being on the team and why trans kids should be allowed to play in sports, because it's like then the kids aren't going to want you to play. Now you're stuck sitting, the coach isn't going to put you in, you're stuck on the sidelines. And yeah, life isn't fair, but that's also completely, I mean, that's where DEI comes in, right? Diversity, equity, and inclusion. Now you're literally cutting someone's ability. Maybe that's the only way that person has a chance to go to college. What if they're poor and live in, I mean,
Yes,
to just
but
say
so the
life
same
isn't
is true for those
fair.
other kids, though. So the
Yeah,
kids
but
they're playing against, maybe that's their only way to go to college. And now the playing field is again not fair. So now you're picking one side, not you personally.
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
You're picking one side over the other. So you look at these two kids. There's a trans boy on a girls' basketball team, and he's playing on a girls' basketball team, and there's a straight girl on a girls' basketball team, and the trans boy is better because he's better at basketball because he's a boy. So he gets to go to college and this girl doesn't. How is that fair? I mean, I see the argument. The argument is accurate on both sides.
I mean, in my opinion, the answer is the trans boy plays on the boys' team.
And then a trans girl would play on the girls' team.
No, a trans girl would play on the boys' team and a trans boy would play on the girls' team, right? Because if you were biologically,
you play your biology, is what you're saying.
I mean,
you'd let girls on the boys' team, which I'm not opposed to, personally.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not either, because when you think about, say, football, for example,
yes.
right? Like, yep. There isn't a football team for girls. So if there's a girl who can kick the fuck out of a football, who can maybe,
there is.
I mean, that's not fair just to assume they're a kicker. Like they could, I quarterback, whatever, right? Yeah. Like, I don't know football well enough to really know, but like, yeah, why not? Like,
and that actually does exist. There are high schools that have girl kickers. You bet.
Right. I've read about it. So it's like, you know, I think what's really hard or interesting, you know, like two things come to mind. One, I do think as kids, this new generation, this generation alpha gets older, it's going to become irrelevant, right? Like it was so sweet. A really good friend of mine's son, who's 5, has a child in their class who is non-binary in kindergarten. And my friend noticed that when her son refers to this kid, he just calls him by his name. Doesn't think twice, could care less. He is just like, yeah, he likes Legos too, or whatever. Like, there's no sense of like weirdness in any way, shape, or form.
Right. But if they're competing for a job, something's gonna give. If they
Sure.
take out one A in class, only one kid gets to be the flag bearer, right? This is how life hands us class, right? And I don't mean like classy people. I mean like your middle class, your poor, your this is throughout history, we got to deal with stuff. Like only one kid gets to be valedictorian. It's going to be the smartest kid, you hope, but not always.
Yeah.
There's
the most academic.
Yeah, there's one scholarship available. Who gets it? And that's where life isn't fair. And I think personally, this is just my opinion, the sooner we learn that as human beings, I think the better off we can be. Because I stress out about fairness constantly. It is a word that is on my mind on a daily basis. And
why is that?
Yeah, for different reasons. Like I think a lot of it has to do with having to watch Starsky and Hutch growing up, or Beretta. Like my sister and my mom watched all of these crime shows, right? All of them. Like that's all we watched as kids. And so my sister and I are obsessed with it now. Now it's true crime, and it's all of these people getting away with bad things. Look at who was sort of pretending to be president for 4 years and what he's gotten away. I mean, it's like, it's not fair. It's just looking at him, the word fair comes up a lot in my mind. Like, what the fuck? So I've noticed that it comes up a lot for me. And I think about, like even my life, and here I am just trying to do the right thing. And I'm trying to do this correctly. I'm trying to do that correctly. And shouldn't I be rewarded for that? It's not fair. Oh yeah, it's not fair. And no, that's not why we get rewarded. It's not also why we're punished. That's the other side of that coin.
Right.
Punished either. It's just life. It's just life. And as kids, we do spend a lot of time, trying to make life fair for our kids. I don't even have kids, and I'm trying to make life fair for them, right? I want them all to go to college. I want them all to have those same.
See, and I don't feel that way. I feel like part of the reason why Americans are increasingly becoming stupider and fucking dumber by the minute is because we do try to do, and it's like college isn't for everyone.
No.
I have a lot of admiration for people that become plumbers or go into a discipline that maybe doesn't need to have a college degree.
Yeah.
And I really hate is a strong word. That's not fair. Like the whole idea of, even in sports, like the participation trophy, I think is the biggest bunch of bullshit ever.
But it exists.
And it's stupid. Maybe this is my Gen X coming out. I'm just like, you know what? No, to your point, like there's first place, there's second place, there's third place.
Yep.
There is, I mean, what's going to happen to your kid when they do go to high school and they feel like they should have been prom king? Well, there's one prom king.
Yeah.
And maybe it just wasn't you. Like, you got to learn. Like I was listening to something a little while ago that was so interesting. It was talking about learning how to fail. And like and it's kind of to that whole point of that life isn't fair and you're not always going to get your fucking way. And you know what? You have to learn how to fucking deal with it and have the tools in place to deal with it.
Why can that apply to trans kids as well? Why can't that apply to the transgender people in general? Not everybody's going to accept them. Not everybody's going to be happy they're around.
Yeah, that's just fact. Like that's already
Yeah.
fact.
Not everybody's going to, you know, be benevolent about it. And that's unfortunately a fact of life. Now, I don't believe you should get violent. I mean, that's why we have laws, right? I feel.
Right, but I think that their lives, to your point, they're already so hard
Oh yeah.
in every imaginable way.
Mhm.
So it's like, and I totally agree. Like, I think and that's why I have a really hard time having an opinion on the topic because I don't understand it enough and it is so complex. Like, yeah, I get that life isn't fair, but I also don't think we should try to make it harder for people that are already minorities and getting already at the bottom, so to speak, of that class system where they're already treated so badly. I don't think adding to their adversity is making anything or anyone better.
Right. But what if, I mean, what is what specifically, can you give me an example of what do you mean adding to their adversity? By telling them they can't be on the girls basketball team?
Yeah, or like that their points aren't going to count, or like that. I feel like that's just making it worse for them.
Yeah, basketball is a luxury.
No, it's absolutely not.
Sure it is.
In
Food,
what way?
food is not a luxury. You can, I'm not saying only basketball is a luxury. I'm just saying the minimums of life, I feel, are what we should be focused on for all people. Healthcare, food, shelter, and
Of
education.
course, absolutely. But again, like going back to the idea of like in some of these communities, basketball or sport is like your one possible way to go to college.
Absolutely.
And maybe it's the other way. Like if there's only one scholarship and the trans boy or girl gets it, well, too bad, so sad for the other kids.
Okay. See, there's an opinion. I disagree with that opinion in some. No, I don't. I 100% agree. But then I'm saying if it's not the trans kid that gets it, too bad, so sad. Right? It's one kid gets it, and whoever that one kid is, that one kid is. Because life isn't fair.
Right. But then if that is the case, then they should be allowed to play in sports and get the points and be.
Yeah, but that doesn't mean they're going to get the scholarship because the scout can still go, oh yeah.
Of course not. And when you're applying for scholars, even a lot of the like sports scholarships, at least when I was applying for scholarships, was a very, very, very long time ago at this point. It wasn't just about your athleticism. And part of that is because most of these schools know you are not going to go on to play professionally. They want to know what your grades are. They want to know what you're doing civically or in your community. And
right.
I mean, I'm not saying that all of them are like that, but a lot of them, they're not just looking at your ability to play a sport. They want to look at you as an entire person. Mm-hmm. And again, like I'm sure football, basketball, a lot of these, they're just looking at sports. But I do think that.
No, I don't. I think they look at multiple things as well.
I think a lot of them do, and increasingly more so since there's been such a spotlight on college athletes and the fact that, I mean, if you're only looking at the kid for the sport, you're depriving them of an education because then it's like, okay, so say if you have that kid, right, like who goes and plays for Michigan or Kansas or whoever, it doesn't even matter. They go, they play football, they get their brains bashed in, and they were able to get the school a number of championships. They don't get paid. Right. I mean, they got a college scholarship, but the coaches, the people around them are making a fucking fortune. And then if they don't get drafted and they can't read or write or do shit, now it's a bad reflection on the school because now you have a candidate sitting for a job going to apply who can't write their own fucking name.
Really? Because just out of curiosity, I hear you, but I'm like, I cannot recall one news story highlighting a specific person. I'm just saying
Oh, there's
society
a
doesn't,
movie. Yeah, there's a
society
movie
doesn't care. We don't care.
about these kids that are used.
Yeah, we don't care.
I think I think they're starting to. I think that again, like I can't remember if what were those, was it 30 for 30? There were those 30 for 30 on ESPNs, and then
Yeah.
there was a documentary, and I cannot remember the name of it, but it was huge when it came out. And it was all about the NCAA and how, I mean, even Charles Barkley came out when because he went to Auburn, I believe. He's like, I basically didn't even go to class.
Yeah. And that's, again, life's not fair. I mean, so what we're saying, and now let me get back to what I'm trying to figure out what we're talking about here, because I want to stick with this topic, is
Yeah.
if there is it that there's only one scholarship available and the best person for that scholarship should be picked, regardless of their gender, their sexual preference.
Yeah. In a lot of ways, I think that's the way to go, right?
I agree.
So, like, if
like the job.
Yeah.
Like who's best for the job, which is interesting because you will find a lot of people that tell you this going on the Patreon, not going to be published. All of this to say it's in place for a reason, though, because human nature can be disgusting, can it not?
No, this is going to drive. Is it affirmative action?
Yes. Thank you. It's affirmative action, and that does start with an E, doesn't it?
No, that's an A.
Oh, affirmative. Yes.
Affirmative. Let me make sure. Hold on.
That's exactly what I was thinking, at least.
Yes. Affirmative action is defined as a set of procedures designed to eliminate unlawful discrimination among applicants, remedy the results of such prior discrimination, and prevent such discrimination in the future.
Well, yeah. And that's why I think affirmative action is a good thing, right? Because people did discriminate.
They still do.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
so I don't think affirmative action again, it's me saying I hate that we have to regulate morality. I hate that we have to have affirmative action, but until such time as the human race can become good, we're going to have affirmative action.
Well, and that's why it's like, yeah, it's easy to be like, life isn't fair. And sure, that's very true. Life isn't fair in a lot of
life isn't fair.
But I think that in a lot of ways, say when segregation was, or Jim Crow, people could have just been like, oh, you were born black, like life isn't fair.
Yeah, they could have done that, but that's why we don't allow people to do those things, I would think, because it's not right. And then, so let's go one step further then. What if it happened the other way around? Right? I mean, life isn't fair, and that's what we have to remember. That's why we have laws in place to help people balance out the fact that life isn't fair. But life isn't fair, not outside externally. It's not fair internally either, right? Like, it's not like you can expect, well, I ate my breakfast today, so I won't be hungry later. You might be. Because it's not about, I'm putting 2 in and therefore I can take 2 out. That's not how it works. That's definitely not how life works. No. Some people have to put 200,000 in some instances. And I don't mean dollars. I just mean like effort or whatever it might be.